Here's something I think that's interesting. I used to care about immigration because I understood the purpose of assimilation, and I think that many immigrants who come over don't understand American culture. And I feel like it, especially as I'm seeing it now, like when you'll start to go to certain cities, you will just realize that they think that American culture is like McDonald's or something. Like that's what they think it is, because they've never had like this middle class experience of like being able to understand people from other religions and cultures, like probably if you're here, probably like we have. And they won't ever get that chance. So they'll go for generations living here in their own subcultures. This is what I mean. Immigration doesn't really work. Like, it doesn't fix the assimilation problem. And it just creates these subgroups. But a whole other thing, and this is another thing I really wonder. I'm really concerned. I used to care about immigration because I thought I would live in America. I don't feel that way anymore. So I guess I don't care who immigrates here. But civil rights are really important. Because at one point or another in your life, if you live in America, you will have to engage in some way with like the legal system, and you will have to exercise your rights. If you don't have any rights to exercise, like if you are a person who's lost your civil rights, then you need to leave because you can't do anything. That's really important to understand. If you don't have access, and I mean equal access to all of the systems that are in place, and if those systems are not engaging with you in an equal way, which is the case for Black Americans, you cannot stay here. There is, I think that for a very long time, Black Americans have been hopeful that, you know, one day these systems will function equally to everyone. It was like the Martin Luther King's dream. Well, I have a new dream, that all Black people get out of America and let white people receive their justice in isolation. That is my dream. I think it will happen. I think that a lot of people are leaving. I think that a lot more people will leave. And I also think that in terms of international relations, a lot of people have a lot of empathy for this like diversity myth, right? Because if it's just a white ethno state, well, then nobody feels any empathy anymore. It's like, well, shit, like you could just, it's like equal game, right? It's like, well, the Black people over here and then the white people over here. So whoever your adversaries are, it's very clear where to take the shot sort of situation. But when you have this like mesh, it's called a hypothetical mesh pot, where it's like unclear, you know, who's on whose team, right? So supposedly, if you have like citizenship, you are on this team. But if you don't have civil rights, you aren't on the team. It's almost like being a player who never gets any time on the field. Why are you on the team? And if you don't get any time on the field and you don't get a paycheck, like you are actually getting nothing out of being there besides your name being on the roster, maybe for marketing purposes, right? But in terms of actual participation, there is none. So if your goal is to play the game of politics, of life, you need to be somewhere where you are a player. That's the point of having and exercising civil rights. And it's wild to have real adults who are advocating for the loss of that for certain people. But there's a whole other side to this, though, because I do think that I think the case was, is it Antoine Brown? I think that's the case. So I will go find an article. I saw a couple of videos that spoke about this, but basically what happened is a young black kid gets pulled over by a cop, white cop. The cop shoots the kid. Basically, something happened with the interaction. The cop shoots the kid dies. Now the father of the kid was so upset about this, he literally just saw a group of cops and ran over one. And so then, he is taken into custody and he's on trial or whatever. And, as he walks out, all the police officers, they came in to the courtroom with their heads held high. This is what they believed. They were trying to show some sort of solidarity amongst each other. And I don't think that they realized that in the same way that they were on a team, we are also on a team. I'm definitely on the side of this, Andrew father, right? Because the premise of that is like that black father knew that he was never going to get any justice in the court system. And he didn't. Because America does not see black people as full citizens. So even when there is wrongdoing, and you try to take action to try to attain justice within the court system, which is how it hypothetically should work, it never plays out. So because it never plays out, you never get any justice. So the only justice is murder. Harvard has a class about this that is really good. It's called Is There Any Justice in Murder? Yes, there definitely is. This is why people talk about, court justice versus street justice. And you'll see a bunch of stories, if you go look for them, about judges who have been murdered. Just murdered. Cold blood, right? I would call that justice too. If a judge can't provide justice in the courtroom, all right, then it's time for them to go. They did nothing. They contributed nothing, right, to civil society. And they played with someone's rights. So they got the justice that was coming to them. That's karma. That's like, it doesn't always look so black and white. As a, I think this is the part where I feel like America was a good trial run. It was a failed test of implemented, how do you say it? Like a written justice system that could hypothetically work for all citizens and was a ethnically, racially, and religiously diverse playing ground. It is a failed state. It is a failed test. It is a failed system, but it was a good try. I gotta say, as an African person, I learned a fuck ton about the other groups. I couldn't have learned that from a documentary. You gotta live things and see it in real life. And I think some of the interesting things that, especially some of us in the African community and the black community, have been watching for a while. This is my favorite example. It's the Asian people who are on the internet first doing blackface and making comedy sketches around blackface. Now I've been watching this for a while. I wish I would have done more screen captures of it, but it was so good because to them it was so funny. It was genuinely in their heart that hate was funny. And it's almost the same way with the Latinx community, the Hispanic community, right? Another thing, so I kind of understand to an extent the Asian racism. There's something about their brains where they believe that being whiter skinned is just better. So that's their beauty standard. So their hatred seems to be we believe whiter people are prettier. And then there's a whole other thing where they seem to think that black people are more violent. I don't, that's my understanding. Anyway, the Hispanic people though is a bit it just confuses me a little bit because at no point, at least in my recollection, did any black people ever do anything. It's just it's almost like if you're just not a part of the narrative and then you just insert yourself into the narrative. When did a black person, I think there's some Haitians who've gone to some of the Hispanic communities like Puerto Rico, or there's a couple that are the Caribbean places where the black people immigrated there, and they also treated them horribly. But besides that, I'm not seeing, was there some war or something, or like, what is the anti-blackness in the Hispanic community? Like, where did that come from? The only way I could describe it is like defective genes. Like, I think a lot of these things are genetic. I think they're by the group. The whole group is defective, and that's just like how it is. So like when you see one person from the group, you can attribute most of the characteristics, most of the character flaws are going to apply for the other group. What I'm saying is that, like, I think it's just been interesting to watch it all play out for so long, you know, where like the stereotypes are, how do you, like, I don't know. Maybe it's not even worth going down the rabbit hole of that. Or maybe I'll table that for another day. But I guess the point is the flawed justice system. I think the very short history of this country will be remembered for a very long time. Something like the fall of Rome, you know? Except I don't feel like most people care about Rome. Like, I've been to Rome. It's a very shitty country. Like, the people are awful and it's very dirty. Like, definitely nothing to write home about. I kind of see the same here. Like, it's not... There's more bad memories than positive ones. And you would think people at this point would learn and try to change in some way. And I feel like recent events have just shown us that not only does no one want to change, they want to get worse. They want to die. Really? That's there's not another thing to say. Like, war promotes death. War incites death. So, I keep hearing all of these things about society. Like listening to Michael Knowles talk about society. Society includes everyone. So if you're talking about the country as a society, that would be everyone. Michael Knowles knows that everyone is not like him. Everyone does not think like him. Everyone is not Catholic like him. Everyone is not a false prophet like him. Everyone is not a hypocrite like him. Only he is walking his personal lane. So he is delusional about what society is. He is a member of society, yes. But he is one of the delusional members of society who clearly sees this society as like functional. Like yesterday or the past few days have not been the boiling point of tension. And we could call it tension between the right and the left, but it's way deeper than that. It's about the hatred of groups. And there's many groups. There's the Christians versus the non-Christians. There's the Christians versus the Muslims. There's the Jews versus the Muslims. There's the white people versus the black people. There's the continental Africans versus the black Americans. Okay, there's the Hispanic people versus the black people. There's the Asian people versus the black people. There's the women versus the men. There's the right versus the left. There's the moderates versus everybody. There's the incels versus everybody. We got a lot of group tension here, right? So the society has been dysfunctional for a while. And I think that what today, or what these last few days teach us, that it isn't worth saving, right? What is there to fight for? Would you want to fight to preserve this? Why? I think like listening to Nick Fuentes, it was weird and it was right at the same time. Because like he made sense in terms of his idealistic interpretation of civility, where he was basically explaining that war would not make any sense. It would not be positive for anyone. That's true. But it is also impossible to continue going the way that we are going. Like, we have hit, it isn't just a bump in the road, it is a civil standstill. As in, like, nobody is compromising, no one is giving up anything, and no one is switching sides. Everyone is standing firm in their beliefs. And so many of the beliefs are just, like, wholly opposed to the other side. And, like, what do you do with that? What do you do with that? I don't know. I would argue there's nothing really that you can do with that. Like, you have to just understand that is where we are. And I think you just, you retreat back to your tribe. That is what you do. And I think one of the really positive things about online spaces have been the allowance for Black women to find their tribe with other Black women. And I think that is very important. I think that is critical. And I think that for so many groups, for a long time, Black women have been their learning guides for oppression. Because Black women have been oppressed the most, other women can look at that group and then say, this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened, and then this happened. We don't want that to happen to us, so we are going to take this step to make sure that it doesn't happen to us, even though we watched it happen to them. So then what happens, though, when there's no more Black women? Like, the Black women have left. The Black women don't live here anymore. The oppression doesn't leave. The sort of give and take between the groups is still there. The adversity and animosity between the groups is still there. But there is no more scapegoat. And so the real problems that have been presented by all of the parties involved just remain. And this country just refuses to solve any problems. Right? So problems definitely have to be solved. Like, for sure.